As far as everybody was concerned, it took off normally, was flying its route north towards China. It turned off its communications and basically went dark.
It's the 12-year-old ghost that refuses to rest. A Boeing 777 swallowed by the silence of the southern Indian Ocean. But in January 2026, the mystery of MH370 took a surreal turn when Elon Musk's Grok AI, known for its spicy, unfiltered persona, dropped a set of coordinates that sent the internet into a tailspin. Could a silicon brain really find what the world's greatest oceanographers missed? Or is the AI simply leading us to a much deeper human truth? Let's dive into whether this was a digital prophecy or just a masterclass in data mining. The Grok moment. Digital prophecy, or data mining. The internet has a weird way of turning a chatbot into a digital oracle. In late 2025, a series of viral screenshots began circulating on X, claiming that Grok had definitively identified the coordinates for MH370. The responses weren't the typical "I am an AI and cannot speculate" disclaimers we've grown used to. Instead, Grok reportedly provided specific numbers, pointing to a rugged stretch of the southern Indian Ocean near the seventh arc. For a moment, it felt like the truth-seeking AI had bypassed a decade of bureaucratic red tape to solve the unsolvable. But to understand why Grok said what it said, we have to look under the hood of how Elon Musk's AI actually thinks. Unlike other models that rely on static datasets frozen in time, Grok is plugged directly into the live pulse of X. It feeds on real-time conversations, white papers, and the high-speed debates of the MH370 Twitter community, a group of independent investigators, engineers, and data scientists who have spent 12 years obsessing over every satellite ping and radio ripple. When Grok revealed the location, it wasn't performing a magical calculation in a vacuum. It was performing a massive, high-speed aggregation of the most credible current theories. It was essentially taking a vote among the smartest people on the internet and presenting the consensus as a discovery. Specifically, Grok's data mining likely synthesized three major sources: the WSPR, Weak Signal Propagation Reporter, anomalies analyzed by British engineer Richard Godfrey.
I'm very confident. We have quite a lot of data from the Inmarsat satellite. We have oceanography, drift analysis.
The drift modeling from the University of Western Australia, and the refined Inmarsat satellite data. By merging these, the AI didn't just guess. It identified the sweet spot where these three independent scientific disciplines overlap. While some saw this as a prophecy, the reality is even more interesting. Grok acted as a giant digital funnel, taking millions of data points from the world's most intense open-source investigation and narrowing them down into a single actionable lead. This Grok revelation is significant not because the AI has secret satellite access, but because it proves that we've reached a tipping point in the search. We no longer lack data. We simply have too much of it for a human brain to process at once. By highlighting a specific zone, roughly 1,500 miles west of Perth, Grok wasn't just being edgy. It was reflecting a shift in the global scientific consensus that the plane isn't just out there somewhere, but is likely resting in a very specific, high-probability corridor that is currently being scanned by deep-sea robots. The irony of the Grok moment is that while the AI was being hailed or mocked for its confidence, it was actually doing exactly what it was designed to do: finding the signal in the noise. It took a decade's worth of spicy debate and refined it into a geographic reality. However, knowing a coordinate on a screen is vastly different from seeing a fuselage on the seafloor, and the confidence of an algorithm is only as solid as the physics that support it. But even the smartest AI is only as good as the raw data we feed it. The physics of the seventh arc, the hard evidence. If Grok is the high-tech messenger of 2026, then the Inmarsat satellite data is the ancient, immutable gospel of this mystery. To understand why any AI or any human investigator points to a specific patch of the southern Indian Ocean, we have to look at the physics of the seventh arc. This isn't just a line on a map. It is a mathematical boundary defined by the laws of speed, light, and timing. It represents the final handshake between the aircraft and a satellite 35,800 kilometers above the Earth. While much of the plane's electronic heart was manually silenced early in the flight, a single persistent link remained: the Satellite Data Unit, SDU. This link functioned like a rhythmic digital heartbeat. Every hour, the Inmarsat 3F1 satellite would essentially ask the plane, "Are you still there?" And the plane would reply, "Yes." Even though these pings contained no GPS coordinates or flight status data, they carried two pieces of metadata that changed aviation history: burst timing offset, BTO, and burst frequency offset, BFO. These are the breadcrumbs of the digital age, and they are the only reason we aren't still looking for the plane in the South China Sea. Let's break down the BTO first, because it is the where. Think of BTO as a measure of distance. When the satellite sends a signal, it takes a fraction of a second to travel to the plane and back. By measuring that delay with microsecond precision, engineers could calculate exactly how far the plane was from the satellite. Imagine tethering a 3,000-mile string to a pole, the satellite, and walking in a circle. That circle on the ground is your BTO arc. Because we have 7 of these pings, we have 7 expanding circles. The 7th arc is simply the final circle drawn at 8:19 UTC, the moment the plane's fuel was exhausted and its engines flickered out. But a circle is a massive area. To find out where on that circle the plane ended up, we need the BFO, the how. This is essentially the Doppler effect. Just as a siren changes pitch as it speeds past you, the frequency of the satellite signal shifts depending on whether the plane is moving toward or away from the satellite and how fast it's going. Inmarsat's engineers performed what many call groundbreaking maths by comparing these frequency shifts against other known flights from that same day. This Doppler analysis provided the directional southward vector. It proved beyond any scientific doubt that the plane didn't turn toward Kazakhstan or the Maldives, but headed straight into the loneliest stretch of the southern Indian Ocean. By 2026, our understanding of this data has become incredibly refined. In the early years, the search area was a staggering 120,000 square kilometers. Today, thanks to Bayesian statistical modeling and high-fidelity flight simulations, that monstrously big circle has been shaved down to a corridor. We now know that the final BFO values at the 7th arc were wild, showing a massive downward acceleration. This indicates that at the very end, the plane wasn't gliding gracefully. It was in a terrifying high-speed plunge, likely dropping at a rate of 15,000 to 25,000 feet per minute. This high-speed dive is a critical detail. It suggests that the final resting place isn't hundreds of miles away from the 7th arc, but likely within a narrow 15 nautical mile radius of that last handshake. This is why the current 2026 search by Ocean Infinity is so focused on filling in the gaps of the 7th arc. They aren't looking for a needle in a haystack anymore. They are looking for a needle in a very specific, well-defined patch of hay that was previously skipped due to the rugged, mountainous terrain of the seafloor. Furthermore, recent 2025 updates to the up-down motion-coupled models have allowed researchers to account for the wobble of the Inmarsat satellite itself. Because the satellite was old in 2014, its orbit wasn't perfectly stationary. It tilted slightly north and south. This tilt, which was once a headache for engineers, became a hidden gift. It allowed them to break the symmetry of the data and confirm the plane's southern track with even greater certainty. When Grok or any modern algorithm scans these datasets, it isn't finding a new theory. It is calculating the intersection of these overlapping physical certainties. The seventh arc remains the ultimate X on the map because it is the only evidence that isn't subject to human memory or political spin. It is the cold, hard result of signals moving at the speed of light. While the ocean is deep and the terrain is treacherous, the physics of the seventh arc has never changed. It has simply been waiting for our technology and perhaps our artificial intelligence to become sharp enough to read it correctly. If the satellite gave us the map, the radio waves gave us the trail. WSPR and the invisible tripwire theory. If the seventh arc is the skeleton of the MH370 mystery, the WSPR, weak signal propagation reporter, data is its nervous system. To understand why Grok and other advanced algorithms are suddenly pointing to high probability coordinates, we have to grasp a revolutionary concept in passive radar. For years, the world assumed that once MH370 left the range of military radar, it became invisible. But according to British aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey, the plane was never truly alone. It was constantly flying through a global web of invisible tripwires created by amateur radio enthusiasts. Thousands of low-power radio signals crisscrossing the planet every minute of every day. WSPR isn't a tracking system designed for planes, but it accidentally became one. Thousands of radio operators around the world use this protocol to test how far their signals can travel by bouncing them off the ionosphere. These signals are incredibly weak, often no more powerful than a Christmas tree bulb, but they are highly sensitive. When an object as large as a Boeing 777 crosses one of these signal paths, it doesn't just block the signal, it scatters it. It creates a disturbance in the force, a tiny anomaly in the signal's strength and frequency that is recorded in a massive public database. What makes this smart science is how Godfrey and his team have spent the last few years retroactively scanning the WSPR database from March 8, 2014. By looking for specific anomalies that align with the known timing of MH370's flight, they have been able to plot a path that is far more detailed than anything the Inmarsat satellite data could provide. While the satellite gave us hourly handshakes, the WSPR network provides pings every 2 minutes. This allows for a granular reconstruction of the flight, including a series of previously unknown turns and a potential 22-minute holding pattern off the coast of Sumatra. The beauty of the WSPR theory is its mathematical elegance. It takes a noisy global data set and uses machine learning to filter out the background clutter of the ionosphere. By 2026, these models have become so sophisticated that they can distinguish the signal disturbance of a Boeing 777 from that of a smaller private jet, or even a flock of birds. The WSPR trail for MH370 ends at a very specific point, 33.177 degrees south, 95.300 degrees east. This isn't just a random set of numbers, it's the point where the WSPR tripwire trail intersects with the seventh arc, creating a definitive bullseye for search teams. Of course, this theory hasn't been without its skeptics. Early on, critics argued that WSPR signals are too unstable and that the anomalies Godfrey found were just natural variations in the atmosphere. However, as we move through 2026, the data has been put through a blind test gauntlet. Researchers used the same WSPR algorithms to track other flights from 2014 that landed safely, and the system correctly identified their flight paths with startling accuracy. This validation is likely why Grok, when asked for the final resting place, prioritized the Godfrey coordinates. The AI isn't just guessing a location. It is identifying the theory with the highest degree of validated cross-correlation. But why would a plane end up at 33.177 degrees south? This area sits at the foot of the Broken Ridge, a massive underwater plateau that looks like a jagged scar on the ocean floor. The terrain here is brutal. Underwater mountains, deep canyons, and massive silt plains. It is exactly the kind of place that would swallow a plane whole, hiding it from the lower resolution sonar used in previous searches. The WSPR data suggests that the plane didn't just crash. It arrived at this location after a complex series of maneuvers, hinting that someone might have been in control until the very end. This leads us to the most haunting part of the WSPR analysis, the holding pattern. If Godfrey's data is correct, MH370 spent 20 minutes circling in the dark before heading south. This suggests a pilot who was biding his time, perhaps waiting for the sun to set or for a specific fuel threshold to be met. It transforms the mystery from a ghost flight, where everyone was incapacitated, into a rogue pilot scenario. By using radio waves to track these turns, we aren't just finding a wreck. We are reading the final intentions of the person in the cockpit. The reason this matters for the 2026 search is efficiency. Ocean Infinity's robotic fleet doesn't have the time to scan the entire 7th arc again. They are using the WSPR bullseye to prioritize their dives. By focusing their Hugin 6000 AUVs on this invisible trail, they are betting that the radio enthusiasts of 2014 were the unintended witnesses to the world's most mysterious flight. If the plane is found at 33.177 degrees south, it will be a triumph of citizen science. The idea that a retired engineer and a global network of ham radio geeks found what the world's militaries could not. Data is beautiful, but it doesn't account for a human hand on the joystick. The pilot, the predator, and the controlled ditching. Knowing where a plane ended up is a matter of mathematics. Knowing how it got there is a matter of psychology. While much of the search for MH370 has treated the aircraft as a ghost flight, a vessel flying on autopilot until it succumbed to gravity, a competing and increasingly dominant theory in 2026 suggests a much more deliberate end. This is the controlled ditching hypothesis, and it transforms the final resting place from a crash site into a crime scene. At the heart of this narrative is the pilot in command, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. For years, investigators have pored over the data recovered from his home flight simulator. In 2016, it was confirmed that the FBI had recovered a deleted flight path that bore a haunting resemblance to the one MH370 actually took, a track that led deep into the southern Indian Ocean. But in 2025 and early 2026, researchers like Dr. Vincent Line have taken this a step further. They argue that the simulator wasn't just a rehearsal for a flight to nowhere. It was a blueprint for a perfect disappearance. The controlled ditching theory posits that the pilot remained in command until the very second the plane hit the water. The goal wouldn't have been a high-speed self-harm dive, but a masterful water landing designed to keep the fuselage intact so it would sink to the bottom in one piece, leaving as little debris as possible. Think of it as a dark mirror to the Miracle on the Hudson. If the plane sank mostly whole, it explains why, despite years of searching, we have found only a handful of fragments rather than a massive debris field. The physical evidence for this theory lies in the flaperon, the piece of the wing found on Reunion Island in 2015. Detailed forensic analysis of the flaperon's trailing edge shows damage that some experts, including renowned air crash investigator Larry Vance, claim is consistent with the flaps being extended.
Could this be from a missing Malaysia Airlines plane? It's the latest object arousing suspicion on Reunion Island. The twisted piece of metal has been found days after a wing component was discovered here.
In a standard high-speed crash, the flaps would be retracted. If they were extended, it means someone was manually flying the plane, preparing it for a slow-speed impact with the waves. This theory points to a very specific and terrifying final resting place, the Penang Longitude PL hole. This is a 6,000-meter deep trench located exactly where the longitude of Penang, the pilot's hometown, intersects with the 33rd parallel south. Dr. Line's research suggests that this location wasn't chosen at random. It is an ultra-deep hole at the eastern end of the broken ridge, where the seafloor drops away into an abyss. If a pilot wanted to hide a 250-ton aircraft forever, there is no more effective lockbox on the planet than this trench. The PL hole theory also reconciles one of the strangest anomalies of the search, the lack of a black box signal. In 2014, the search was led astray by pings that turned out to be from non-aircraft sources. But Line's 2026 update suggests that if the plane entered a trench this deep and jagged, the acoustic signals from the underwater locator beacons, ULBS, would have been trapped or shadowed by the canyon walls, never reaching the surface. The plane didn't just crash, it was parked in a geological blind spot. Critics of the rogue pilot theory often point to the final Inmarsat pings, which show a massive downward acceleration, suggesting an uncontrolled dive. However, the smart counter-argument in 2026 is that this dive was actually a controlled steep descent, a maneuver designed to lose altitude rapidly before leveling out for a ditching. This would explain the wild satellite data without requiring the plane to be a pilotless ghost. By weaving together the simulator data, the flaperon damage, and the unique bathymetry of the southern Indian Ocean, the controlled ditching theory provides a motive for why the plane is so hard to find. It suggests we aren't looking for a scattered wreck, but a preserved tomb. This is likely why Grok, when aggregating the smartest current theories, doesn't just point to the seventh arc in general, but specifically toward the rugged deep-water intersections where human intent meets geological opportunity. If this scenario is true, the discovery of MH370 won't just be an engineering feat. It will be a psychological revelation. It would mean that for 12 years, the world has been looking for an accident, when they should have been looking for a masterpiece of evasion. The final resting place wasn't a mistake. It was a destination. Knowing where to look is one thing. Having the claws to reach it is another. The year of the robotic resurrection. While the digital debates of 2024 and 2025 set the stage, January 2026 has become the moment of truth. As you read this, a sleek, futuristic silhouette is cutting through the swells of the southern Indian Ocean. This is the Armada 8605. The flagship of Ocean Infinity's 2026 campaign. It isn't just a ship. It is a mobile command center for the most sophisticated robotic search in human history. After a decade of false starts and ghost pings, the hunt for MH370 has officially entered its most aggressive and technologically advanced phase. On December 31st, 2025, the Armada 8605 arrived at the 7th Arc. And for the last 3 weeks, it has been working with a methodical, cold-blooded efficiency that was impossible just a few years ago. The statistics coming from the vessel are staggering. As of January 15, 2026, the operation has already scanned a cumulative area of 7,236.40 square kilometers. To put that in perspective, that is roughly 10 times the land area of Singapore, scoured in less than a month. The mission is operating under a no-find, no-fee contract with the Malaysian government, a high-stakes $70 million bet that says our robots are finally smarter than the ocean is deep. But the real stars of the show aren't the humans on the bridge. They are the three Hugin 6000 AUV autonomous underwater vehicles that are currently diving into the abyss.
These are the assets that are doing the actual seabed scanning. They're basically underwater robots. They look like torpedoes, and they go and autonomously scan the seabed. They could only deploy 3, which was significantly less than the 8 that were used in the 2018 search, in which covered so much ground so quickly.
These Hugin 6000's are the absolute pinnacle of marine robotics. Unlike the tethered towfish used in the original 2014 search, which were essentially giant underwater kites prone to snagging and poor image quality, the Hugins are free flyers. They dive to 6,000 meters, nearly 20,000 feet, and navigate entirely on their own, using an internal brain to follow a pre-programmed search grid. They are equipped with synthetic aperture sonar, SAS, which provides a resolution so high it can distinguish a soda can from a rock at a distance of 100 meters. For the first time, we aren't looking at grainy blobs on a screen. We are looking at the seafloor in high-definition 3D. The search strategy in 2026 is a masterpiece of data-driven prioritization. The Armada 8605 isn't wandering aimlessly. It is focused on 2 primary hotspots that have emerged from the WSPR and satellite reassessments we discussed earlier. The first is the IG hotspot, centered around 34.2 degrees south, 93.8 degrees east, a location suggested by the independent group of investigators. The second is the Bleli Martian Zone, centered around 35.7 degrees south, 93 degrees east, a previously unsearched area that researchers believe is the most likely terminal point of a controlled flight. The ship has been driving tight, 20 nautical mile search legs, meticulously painting the seabed with sonar pulses. What makes the 2026 search different from the failure of 2018 is the persistence of the tech. These new AUVs have a massive battery life, allowing them to stay submerged for up to 100 hours at a time. This means less downtime spent hauling the robots back to the surface and more time scanning the target zones. Furthermore, the Armada 8605 features a skeleton crew of just a few specialists, with most of the data processing happening via satellite in real time back in London and Austin. We are effectively crowdsourcing the search for the wreckage across the globe, while the robots do the heavy lifting in the dark. However, the southern Indian Ocean remains one of the most hostile environments on Earth. In the second week of January, a massive weather system forced the Armada 8605 to halt operations and recover its AUVs. The mission was on standby for several days as 15-foot swells battered the deck. This is the reality of the seventh arc. Even with 2026 technology, you are always at the mercy of the roaring 40s. The mission is scheduled to run for 55 operational days, meaning every day lost to weather is a day of lost opportunity. As of January 21st, the ship is preparing to head back toward Fremantle for a crew change and resupply before the final decisive push of the summer season. There is a sense of now or never in the air. The Malaysian government has been clear that if this search, with its refined coordinates and 2026-grade robotics, comes up empty, there may not be another one for a generation. This is why the AI-driven analysis from Grok and other platforms has been so focused on these specific missions. If the plane is there, these Hugin AUVs will see it. They are equipped with magnetometers that can detect the metallic signature of the plane's engines, even if they are buried under several meters of silt. They have laser scanners that can create a perfect 3D model of the wreckage the moment it is found. The 2026 search is the final bridge between the mystery of the past and the technology of the future. We have moved from guessing to calculating, and from looking to seeing. Whether the Armada 8605 finds the Boeing 777 in the next 30 days or not, it has already proven that the search for MH370 is no longer a desperate scramble. It is a systematic, robotic resurrection of a story we refused to forget. The final resting place is no longer a secret. It is simply a coordinate that hasn't been scanned yet. We are closer now than we have ever been to the final answer. The convergence of intelligence. In the quiet, pressurized depths of the southern Indian Ocean, the digital and the physical are finally colliding. The sensation surrounding Grok's revelation of MH370's final resting place is more than just a viral moment or an algorithmic curiosity. It is a symptom of a world that is no longer willing to accept missing as a final answer. By January 2026, we have moved beyond the era of blind searching. We have entered the era of the convergence of intelligence, where the raw data of the past is being resurrected by the super processing power of the present. The smart takeaway from the Grok headlines isn't that a chatbot has a magic telescope pointed at the seafloor. Rather, it is that AI has become the ultimate curator of human expertise. When Grok points to the seventh arc, it is validating a decade of grueling work by people like Richard Godfrey, Dr. Vincent Line, and the Independent Group. It is signaling that the noise of 1,000 conflicting theories has finally been filtered out, leaving us with a high-probability bullseye. We are no longer looking at a vast, empty ocean. We are looking at a specific set of coordinates backed by satellite physics, radio, anomalies, and geological logic. As the Armada 8605 navigates the swells 1,500 miles west of Perth, it carries the weight of this collective intelligence. Every time a Hugin 6000 AUV descends into the darkness, it is guided by the models that AI has helped refine. If the wreckage is found in 2026, the credit won't belong to a single person or a single machine. It will belong to the bridge built between human intuition and artificial processing. It will be a triumph for the families who never stopped asking, the scientists who never stopped calculating, and even the unfiltered algorithms that kept the world's attention focused on the coordinates that matter. The mystery of MH370 has always been a battle between the scale of the Earth and the reach of our technology. For 12 years, the Earth won. But as we stand in the early weeks of 2026, the tide has turned. The final resting place is no longer a ghost story or a digital hallucination. It is a physical reality that our robots are currently painting with sonar, 1 square meter at a time. Whether the truth is revealed by a viral post from an AI or a quiet update from a deep-sea drone, the ending of this story is finally within our grasp. The silence of the southern Indian Ocean is about to be broken. Soon, the cold, crushing depths will surrender their long-held secrets, transforming a decade of agonizing uncertainty into a somber monument of closure for the families and a testament to human persistence. What are your thoughts about Musk's Grok AI technology? Leave your comments below so we can hear from you too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this.